hustlers, road players, tournament champions. Hear the stories, get their advice, learn about their lives. Our host, Joey Ryan, brings you an inside look at the professional pool player. You're listening to the Pool Player Podcast, brought to you by Pool Scene 365.
Hey, welcome to the Pool Player Podcast, brought to you by Pool Scene 365. I'm your host, Joey Ryan. Today's guest has just an incredible resume. She's a former world snooker champion, world English billiards champion, and world 9-ball champion, and has won those titles multiple times. She's also a former world 10-ball champion, and she's a multiple-time WPBA Player of the Year. And most recently, she was inducted into the BCA Hall of Fame. That's right, it's Kelly Fisher. And you know, the thing I was most impressed with talking to Kelly was not all those accolades and everything that she's done on the pool table or the snooker table, but she just seemed to be a genuine, incredible human being. And I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. Some of the topics that we dove into, we talked about her start in snooker, what got her into it, a little bit about her family background and her father's history. I think you'll appreciate some of the things she does other than pool that help her with her mental focus. We also talked about some of the health challenges that she's had over the years and how she's overcome that to go back and win the World 9-Ball Championship and eventually be inducted into the BCA Hall of Fame. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it's Kelly Fisher. I know you have a background in snooker. That's where you got your start, but take us through those early years and kind of what led you to snooker.
Well, to be honest with you, when I think back, I was always interested in it. My parents had a pub here in the UK. And it was actually from when I was born, they were running a pub and it had a snooker table in it. Now, I don't recall this, but apparently I always wanted to play on it and I weren't allowed, obviously, because it was a members pub and I really weren't allowed. But I used to try and sneak in there from a very young age. And even my brother, my dad got a beer crate, turned it upside down and let me sneak on the table. But I think they got in trouble a few times for doing that. So then they changed pubs where my parents owned their own pub and it had an English pool table in it. And I used to play the guys in there for a pound. At this age, I was around about 9 or 10 when they changed pubs. And I'd play the guys for a pound, you know, which is like $1.30, something like that. And I remember saving up over £500, which is, like I say, about $600-700. Over the, however long, playing for just a pound a game. So obviously I could hit a ball, but, I've got a picture from way back that I had a bad cue action, put it that way. But so I always was interested in it. It was very popular snooker over here in the UK in the 80s, and it was on TV all the time, and I watched it all the time. Along with other sports, I was very interested in sports in general. So basically I was doing Kung Fu at that from a young age, from about 7-year-old. And I was, involved with that because my dad he was a boxer. So basically what happened, my dad just said, do you want to go for a game of snooker on a big table? And I'm like, yeah, that would be great. I was 12. And we went to the town and went into the snooker club. And I'm there hitting balls, playing away, really excited just to be playing on a big table. And my dad went to the bar to get us a coffee or a Coke or something. And there was a poster on the wall saying, local coach available, Lionel Payne, contact, be asked behind the bar for more details. So my dad asked behind the bar, for some more information regarding this coach. And the lady said, oh, that's a coincidence, but it's sitting right here. And there was Lionel sitting at the bar having a sandwich or something. So he come and spoke to my dad and he glanced over, looked at me and said, she's a little bit small at the moment, a bit short, maybe bring her back in a year. My dad said, okay, no problem. That'll be fine. And he stood a little longer watching. Again, I've no idea this is all going on. I'm just excited and hitting balls. And he glanced over again and watched me hit a few balls. And he said to my dad, no, I've changed my mind. Let's start today. And I was like 12 then, and he's still my coach today. So we've had our 30th year anniversary together. He's like my best friend, he's like my family. But yeah, Lionel Payne, great coach, and been with me all the way through. Even though he doesn't play 9-ball, he's a lot more familiar with it now, of course, with me, and he's got a few students. But basically, he taught me all about my snooker, and now to this day, he's still my mentor. Gives me a row for when I do a bad technique or when I've let things slip a little bit. So we speak every week and go through stuff. And he's a great guy. And between him and my parents, have helped me to be where I am today.
So, you had a really successful snooker career in the UK. I'm curious as to what made you decide to make the switch to pool and come to the United States and compete.
Well, to be honest with you, it was a bit of a no-brainer, really. I enjoyed playing snooker. I loved it. And at the time I was winning. My goal was to be world champion. And I was, at that moment, world champion and winning most events, to be honest. But the financial reward was never really there. I had to win events each month or every time we had an event just to pay my mortgage, and I was under a lot of pressure. If I wanted to do it full time, I really had to more or less win every event to cover just even a decent salary to live. It was never luxurious in any way, shape or form. So it was hard work, but I was young. I didn't care. So I thoroughly enjoyed playing, never thought too much about the money until I had a mortgage. And then it was just like, right, you have to win. But I enjoyed the challenge. Unfortunately, in 2003, the sponsorship for all the ladies events, which was tobacco sponsorship, all the men's and ladies events, most of them were sponsored by tobacco. And the government banned tobacco sponsorship for all sports in our country. So basically what happened then, even the men's game took a big hit, and the women's game really basically had no events. So I won the World Championships in May. And looking forward to, we always had a break in the season, looking forward to starting in August, for the next event, which is the same every year. And I got back then, no email, it was by post. I got a letter in the mail saying, unfortunately, we've lost the sponsorships and there's no foreseeable events scheduled because we have to find new sponsors and things like that. Well, at that time, I'm devastated, of course, but, I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew Alison Fisher had gone over to America. Karen Core by then had gone over to America. Kim Shaw, So I knew that was, in fact, that always played in my mind. But at the time, I was just enjoying winning and enjoying that time, really. So anyway, I thought I'd ride it out a little bit and see how long I could last. But I had to get a job. I just thought maybe they'd get a new sponsor, but I had to get a job. It wasn't happening. So I ended up, myself and partner, we had to both get a job, and we ended up in a vegetable factory.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was the current world champion, and I was basically in a vegetable factory sorting out veg and stuff, and a conveyor belt going by, and I was picking out the green beans and stuff. It was many people do that, and I respect them for that, but it just wasn't what I was used to. And for me, I don't know, for both of it, I couldn't continue it. And I'll be honest with you, we lasted 3 days. so then after 3 days, yeah. And then after that, I ended up working at a seatbelt factory. When you put the seatbelt on and you click it into the box. Well, I was making that box, which, the spring inside, and I know all how that works, but yeah, I lasted a month. So that, it just wasn't for me. And in that time, I got in touch with Kim Shaw, who's my best friend. And she basically said, look, leave it with me. I'll try and get you a sponsor over here, see if we can get things going. But of course, nobody knew me over in America. So, she basically had a bit of a task ahead of her. And, she did. She managed to find a pool room in Staten Island, New York, that would sponsor me to be the house pro. And both myself and partner went over there and moved in with Kim and her partner at the time. And we put the house on the market and went with, we had no money. And my parents gave me, I think it was £400, which worked out to be $750 US. And for two people, we come to America with $750 US, 5 suitcases of luggage, and the house on the market. Closed the door with everything in the house, the furniture, everything, even the knives and forks, and stayed in Kim's apartment. Sorry, I said flat, that's British. In Kim's apartment. And yeah, started from there, basically. That's where it began in America.
You know, Kelly, that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this. You know, I've played pool for a while, and I'm a good amateur pool player and never really played professionally, but I've met so many professional pool players that just have a story, you know, and I want people to hear this story, you know, because it's amazing. Like, to leave not just your country, but a continent with $750 in your pocket and the belief that you can make it, you know, and you did, you know, so I think that's wonderful. And so I want to share these stories from you and from everyone. So tell us about the first few years of kind of getting settled into the United States, and, you know, take us through that period of time, because as you mentioned, Allison was here. She was on top of the world, I'm sure. Karen was right there, kind of starting to run neck and neck with her. And, you know, I started hearing your name like not long after you got over here, and it took a little while, but then you're right up there in the conversation. So take us through those first few years.
Well, basically, thank you. You know, I agree with you about the stories. A lot of players, you know, didn't just land on their feet and become a world champion or a top player. They struggled, you know, and I think that's what makes them a fighter and gives them the passion and the heart to do what we do. Because, you know, our sport, however much we all love it, it isn't as lucrative as your golf, your tennis. So, you know, we continue to put the hours in and travel all around the world, you know, for not the reward like some sports, but yet we still love it and have the passion to do so. So I think it's great to have that feedback and then stories from all the other players, you know, and thank you for doing that and spreading the passion we all have. So
absolutely.
Back to your question. Yeah, basically, so all that happened in 2003, at the end of 2003, and next thing we were in America by February 2004. And the funny thing was, I'm not going to go all the way through it, but the first thing I remember, we arrived on a Wednesday, and Kim said to me, "We've got a tournament at the weekend in Maryland." I said, "Right, okay." I said, "All right." She said, "It's a qualifier, WPBA qualifier. If you qualify, then you can play in the pro event." And I said, "Right, okay." I didn't understand nothing. I said, "Okay." She said, "You know, basically, you can't just play in the professional tournaments. She says you have to get right, you know, win amateur events and get ranked in amateur tours in order to play the next year on the WPBA." I said, "Right, okay." So I said, "Right, I don't know the rules and I've not got a cue." All right. So I never played 9-ball before. So basically, she gave me a cue, and we drove on Friday to Maryland. And that evening, they showed us the rules of 9-ball, and both myself and Val, my partner, we played in the tournament. And unfortunately, I think Val knocked Kim out and I knocked Tiffany out.
Oh.
Or, you know, the pros that were in the event. But the thing was, it was quite funny because we could pop balls, you know, we could pop the balls, no problem. It was just, we didn't know how to jump. We didn't know how to break. We didn't know how to bank. You know, we could pop the balls. That was it, coming from snooker. So I got second place in that tournament and managed to get a spot into the WPBA event. So off of that started the ball rolling. And, you know, I was doing great on the amateur. Both of us were doing great on the amateur tour, which was getting spots for the WPBA. And my first WPBA event was Canada. I played in Windsor, Canada. And who did I draw? I've not seen her for years yet. We were close, good friends in the UK when she was still here. And now great friends now. But who did I draw first round? Allison. in my very first pro event, I drew Alison first round. I'm like, right, okay. And we laughed and we joked. We said hello. I've not seen her for years and whatnot. But there we go. I drew Alison. I went 8-1 up, race to 9.
Wow.
8-1 up. Yep. Didn't think for 1 minute I could lose, because in snooker, you would never, ever lose 8-1 up. And she beat me 9-8. I missed one shot, a one ball from the break. I missed a silly, it was, and then she just snookered me and saved me, and I didn't know what she tied me in knots, and she beat me 9-8. Yeah, I'll never forget that. So that was my first WPBA event, and then I went on from there, and I was very lucky to pick the game up quite quickly, and I won this was 2005. And by the end of 2004, and by the end of 2004, I was doing all right. I was, getting some 5th place finishes and stuff like that. And I think I won my first event in 2005, which was a San Diego West Coast Classic. So, I'd come through as fast as you could come through in the amateur qualifications, and I was very pleased how I was doing. But I also knew that to be a top player, it would take a lot of years of practice. It wasn't as easy as I thought it would have been coming from snooker to pool. Put it that way.
Yeah. I kind of wish I would have seen that match with Alison. I can just imagine it, right? Because, when we're coming up as pool players, we learn to, you call it pot balls. We learn to, make ball. And, for us, it's like, we feel like we can make any ball at the table at a certain point, and then we learn about position, and then our shot making kind of goes, a little, down. Right. And so you must have been so fun to watch. People would be like watching you make balls, and I'm sure they'd be like, but she has no clue how to play safe, or she has no clue what's, or the strategy of the game. But that must have been a really fun time. You just got out there and fired them in. I love it. So
sorry. I remember one really funny story, and I was on TV on ESPN, and I played Vivian, and I was on the hill. And bearing in mind, this is probably year 2 now, or year 1.5, I don't know, but I didn't know how to bank very well. So everything I didn't know how to do, I had people help me in America. I mean, my coach Lionel that I mentioned earlier in the interview, he's still my coach today. We've been together for 30 years now, which I can't believe I'm even saying that, but that's true. 30 years, and we still stay in touch all the time, and he's great. But he's just, he knows more about 9-ball now, but back then he was a snooker coach. He couldn't really help me with 9-ball as such. All he could do was make sure my technique and my mental side was good. So a lot of people, I had Mikey Naps from New York help me. I had John Barton helped me a lot. And, along the way, Kim also, and Tiffany Nelson, Kim Shaw, many players helped me, and people. I was very lucky, and everybody was great over there. But in order to learn how to bank, this is the example I want to give. I watched a DVD, I think it was Tom Rossman's DVD, How to Learn How to Kick and Bank. And the M&M system, it's how I teach today, actually, is that system. But the M&M system, I watched that, and back then it was DVD, so you rewind it, fast forward, write the notes, rewind it, and I watched it for hours after hours. Mm-hmm. So I'm playing Vivian on TV. I think it's US Open semi-final to get in the final, something like that. And to win, I've left myself terrible on the 9, and I've got a bank, and I'm like, oh no, But I'm thinking, right, okay, you have to remember what you wrote down, the M&M system, what you've been practicing. And I remember all the girls were there watching, all the other players were there watching, and you could see some of them kind of laughing, not at me, but in a nice way, because there I am measuring with my stick how to do the system that I'd learned. I looked like I just began playing, which I suppose I had, but there I am on TV, supposedly to be professional, I didn't know. I'm measuring how to bank over and over again because it's worth so much money. I had no money. I remember having $750. So all of a sudden now this is worth like 10 grand or $6,000. I don't know. I can't remember. And I'm so nervous. I'm measuring. And the referee, Steve Tipton, said, 10 seconds. And I'm like, 10 seconds, extension. So then, I do it all over again. Oh dear. Anyway, I made the 9-ball and got to the final or whatever. And think I lost in the fight. It doesn't matter, but I'll never forget that coming from snooker to pool, what I had to learn, and that bank. It's how I teach today, and I always tell that story to my student. Trust me, it works because it worked for me that one time. Yeah,
that's awesome. So coming from snooker to pool, like if I were someone who had never picked up a cue, what sport would you say is more difficult to learn, snooker or pool?
Well, that's a good question that I've been asked so many times, and I could talk about it for probably 20 minutes, but basically they're both very different. I think to make the ball, snooker is much harder. As far as the game itself, I would say 9-ball's harder, because in snooker, to make the ball, the pockets are smaller, the table's bigger, so you've got a bigger area and you have to have a very accurate cue action. In 9-ball, the pockets being bigger means it allows you to have a sloppier, if you like, cue action and still make the ball. But in snooker, we have 15 reds, so you can do red color. You've always got an area that you will, and we've got 6 colors to choose from. So it's not like with 9-ball, one, you have to get on the 2. If you don't get on the 2, then you can't continue. So both have their own difficulty level, in different areas, I would say. But I would say it's good to, if I had a child, I would say start with snooker, simply because if you get the perfect, great technique, then that's a much easier transition, I feel, to 9-ball than if you play 9-ball and you don't have that quite as accurate technique and then you try and play snooker. You could be good, but I don't think you could be the top. Whereas the other way around, I think you could, as Alison has done, Karen, and luckily myself. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I used to compete, and I actually grew up in Maryland. So your first story about Maryland, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. But I would compete on the Planet Pool Tour, and a couple of the pool rooms there had 12-foot snooker tables there. So I would get there early and grab a rack of pool balls and throw them out on the 12-foot snooker table and try to make the balls. And then once the tournament started and I got on a 9-foot table, it felt like a 7-foot bar box.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly. Whereas if you go the other way around, the snooker table feels like a football pitch. If you've gone the other way around, playing pool first. So.
Absolutely. Can you describe your first major victory that you had in the United States? I think you mentioned that it was the in San Diego. What was that the moment that you really felt like you arrived? Take us through that tournament.
Maybe you can pause the recording here. Let me think of my memory. I really...
Or maybe there was another moment where you felt like, okay, this is it. Like it was worth taking the $750 and moving to the United States. Like I'm here now.
Well, to be honest with you, I knew once I got there and started playing on the amateur tournaments and started to win them and get my ranking on the amateur side, number one, in order to get a tour card for the following year. But also in between that, I qualified for a few of the events. I kind of knew that I could do it. I'm not being big-headed there by any means. I knew it was going to be tough, and I knew I'd have to practice a lot, but I knew there was nothing stopping me from being able to be a top player and do well, as long as I put the time and effort in, and gave it 110%. So I think that I had the confidence, but I just knew it would just take time, really, and I wanted it now. I remember that thinking, right, I know I can do this, and I just I'd set goals for myself, and then calm down a little bit and just set realistic goals for myself. But the first major accomplishment, I mean, there was many, even the amateur events. I remember they were like stepping stones of my confidence, because there was so many great players, and I just arrived in America, and I remember the first one that I won, that felt like I won a world championships. Mm-hmm. And then I went on and played in the US amateur national championships, and I won that. That would, I would say, then give me an indication that, right, okay, you deserve now to be professional on the pro tour, which at that time That was when I transitioned then from that to be on the WPBA professional tour completely. No more qualifying necessary.
Yeah.
So, and I traveled all over the country qualifying. It wasn't just as easy as playing in the odd one. Every weekend or every second weekend, I was somewhere, Arizona, you name it. And it was great. It was good fun too. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed learning. I enjoyed the challenge. I enjoyed all the experiences. But I'd say that in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the amateur nationals, that was definitely a good starting point to think, right, okay, you can really do this. Then winning the San Diego Classic for the first time. Again, I won that tournament 3 years in a row, and I'm getting old. So my memory of that exact final and how I got there, and it's a little blurry. I think I went through the tournament and beat Jasmine Ocean 7-0 in the final. I think.
Really?
Now, I might be quoting wrong there, but that was one of the years. Sorry, Jasmine, but that was one of the years. And I think that is that year, actually, because I didn't expect to win an event so soon. I remember getting to the final, and then I remember this one particular where I won 7-0, and it was like, wow, what happened there? Even I didn't really kind of like realize what had happened. So I think that was the first one I won. And then I'm like, right, okay. I'm very competitive natured, of course. I've been doing this all my life. So then it wasn't like, there was no question then. It was like, well, right, when am I going to win the next one?
Yeah. So with like Allison, when she was over here and really dominating the sport, and then when Karen came over, we didn't see Allison, at least I didn't, at many, mixed events with men and women, but I did see Karen, and I recall seeing you in a few events with the men. Do you think that's important for women to get in events with the men to their development?
Not necessarily, to be honest with you. I think it's important for women to practice with against better players. And I think it's important for anybody, if you can, practice against someone at your level, if not better. So, of course, as we know, there's many great women players across the world, but we know the men certainly have a slightly higher standard. If we look at the top men and the top women, the top men have a slightly higher standard than the women. Same in most sports, but that's one thing we know. So I definitely recommend to practice for a woman player or any player to practice with somebody better than you. But as far as competitions, in snooker, I got stung a little bit of that whole women should be allowed to play in men's events, because in snooker, they opened up the pro tour for the men's pro tour and allowed women to play on it. And I tried, Alison tried, Karen tried, we all tried, and we fought our way through about 2,000 men players and got ranked in the top couple of hundred. But we never made the cut to where you were on the tour, you got the tour card and you guaranteed. And snooker, if you're in the top 96, you're guaranteed money, regardless of your results. So we never made the cut to that. And I felt that, I'm going back a lot of years now, but I felt that it kind of did more harm than good for the women's tour by doing that. It kind of, if we keep the women's tour and the men's tour separate, and then they can have their own individual pedestal, if you like. But once we start mixing it, and of course, the women you're not going to see a woman winning every men's event. You're not going to see her probably winning a men's event. So therefore, it kind of takes away the women's pedestal. It lowers that whole persona and everything. And I think for sponsors and stuff like that. But again, I'm not saying I'm against it, because I enjoy playing in men's events. I enjoy playing against the guys. It's a great challenge. And I feed off them not wanting to lose to a girl. But just that whole experience, it kind of worries me when they're mixing tournaments. Now we're in 2020, so it might be a total different. I might be looking, keep away from looking back really, and focus on the now, and it might do great for our sport. But I felt it did hurt the women's snooker. But again, I know Matchroom are doing some, like they're opening their events to women, and I'll probably play in some. I probably will play in the US Open, things like that. But ideally, under the perfect ideal world, I'd love to see Matchroom have a women's US Open
Yeah.
and a men's US Open, playing at the same time, but as separate events. I'd love to see it for the same money, same time, separate events though. I don't see why we have to mix them. And I don't know many sports that do really. If you look at golf, tennis, they don't need to mix them, you know, apart from when you play mixed doubles. And I think that's really how it kind of should be and should stay.
Yeah. And I guess it kind of leads me to another question that I have, because, you know, maybe the explanation for why pool and maybe snooker does try to mix them is that, you know, at least in my brain, I have a hard time understanding why men at the top levels outperform women, you know, because it's not a sport where, you know, physical strength is involved. And I'm curious your thoughts on that, because you did mention the gap between the top men and the top women. Well, I have to say the gap's closing, you know, with yourself and all the Asian players. I mean, I think I counted, if you look at the top like 15 players in terms of Fargo rate, female players, you're number 7, and everybody else in the top 15 is from Asia, right? And you guys are really closing the gap on the men, right? So Sim-Ming Chen's close to 800, you know, and Shane Van Boning's like 820 some. So what are your thoughts as to that gap there? Why do you think the men are, you know, slightly outperforming the women these days?
Okay. You might not like it, Joey, but I'll tell you my thought. No, I'm only joking. I think first of all, we've got to understand that the amount of men playing compared to the percentage of women playing. So there's a lot more men players across the world. There's a lot more men playing snooker than women. There's a lot more men playing pool than women. So the percentages there kind of give you the odds of you know, the percentages of how many good players you're going to get out of a larger group than a smaller group. So, but to answer the question a bit more specific, I think, in fact, I'll tell you, my coach, Lionel, he looked into it when I was young, because when I was 12, 13, 14, I was competing at a level and an equal level with all the other boys my age. And all the way up to about 16 years old, 17 years old. Did you see that I would get into finals of the juniors, including the boys. I was getting to semifinals, finals. I won the odd one at the nationals, juniors, and that were girls and boys. And then all of a sudden, you started to see it change, whether their improvement sped up faster than mine, or whether mine slowed down more than theirs. I can't answer that question. All you saw was that their improvement seemed to go faster than mine from about the age of 16. And I think obviously once I became a woman, then hormones and things like that have a definite impact on it. So why I was laughing earlier was we know that women are good at multitasking, right? And men are not. Sorry. You're gonna get a lot of messages.
Kelly, did you talk to my wife before this interview? What's going on?
Exactly. But we know, and apparently, Lionel, my coach, he looked into it, and basically, women are capable of thinking up to 5 things at one time, whereas a man giving it 100% equally to each 5 things, whereas a man is not. A man is able to do multitask for sure, but really is focused 100% on one thing at one time, really. Yeah. So that's like in a horse race, it's like a horse with blinkers, if you like. So the advantage a man has by having that ability, or lack of ability, joke, the advantage in sport, it gives that man, it's like the focus. If you're down on if you're focusing on playing pool, or your concentration on your match, it's superior to a woman's focus on that one thing at that one time. So I've seen me miss a 9-ball because I got down to the shot and thought about my laundry. I mean, you know, and I don't want to think about my laundry. I don't want that to pop into my head, or think about what I did yesterday or what I'm going to do later. But unfortunately, our brains are a little different. And, you know, I do believe that is a part of it. Now, I'm not saying that's the answer, I just believe that has something to do with it, because if you look at any sport that's non-physical, look at darts, look at chess, Look at, apart from in the new movie, new TV series we're seeing right now, The Queen's Gambit. If we take away that TV series where she's a champion, but if you even look at chess, look at any game, any sport, men are slightly better across the board than women. So that's my theory. Sorry for those who don't like it, and I'm not saying I'm right. It's just a theory and an opinion. And my coach Lionel found out a bit of information that kind of gave me that. Because at 16, things changed once I became a woman. It was weird. Anyway.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kelly. And, you know, like I think to this graphic that I saw one time of like a plate of spaghetti, right? And that's how a woman thinks, is like her spaghetti's all over the place, you know? Yeah. And I forget what the man's even said, but the woman's had the plate of spaghetti. So
yeah. And, you know, we don't want to, especially when I'm trying to focus on playing. And, you know, it's like, I don't want to think of anything else, but, you know, things come into my mind and unexpectedly. And it's like, I think the better female players in the world, the difference between them and the ones that haven't quite made it or don't quite make it, maybe is the ones that can actually just funnel and their focus down, instead of for 5 things, down to 2 or 3 things, or one. I don't know. Them who can focus better, certainly, I think, the ones that end up being the winners and champions. That, along with many other things, don't get me wrong. That's just my opinion on the whole focus thing.
Yeah. So what's going on with all of the female Asian players that are just performing so well? I mean, I mentioned, you know, if you look at the top 15 and according to Fargo rate, you're in there, you're number 7, but everybody else is either China, Taiwan, or Chinese Taipei, the Philippines, and then even down to the top 25 that you get some other, you know, non-Asian ladies. But what do you think's happening over there?
Well, they're machines. No, I mean, they're fantastic players. Again, the amount of players training to be a champion, we'll never know how many, but in China, it's a very big country and there's a lot. And they take the sport seriously, you know. They don't just go in a pool room and play a couple of hours after school. They actually, part of their school is playing for 6 hours a day from a very young age. If that's what you're good at, whichever sport, you know, we see them in the Olympics, we see them playing ping pong, whichever sport you're good at, believe me, you will be pushed and you will play that sport and you'll play it seriously from a very young age. They have coaches, national coaches. They have programs in school to help with that sport. Now we're talking about pool. I've been to a few schools in China and Taiwan that basically they get up, they go to school at 7. They live at the school, some of them, but the ones that at 7 a.m. they start doing their math and their literature and stuff like their schoolwork, if you like. And then 1 o'clock they finish that at 1 p.m. and then they start playing pool till 8 p.m. 1 till 8 p.m. they play pool. So their day is very long. Can you imagine in America or in the UK telling our children that's what they have to do? That just wouldn't work. Yeah. So, you know, but that's what I've heard of some schools actually do. And, you know, the Coe brothers, fantastic players. I went to their school and that's actually one school that they told me they board there, they stay there, they live there. Monday to Friday, but they have to start schoolwork at something like crazy, like 7 a.m. And then they play pool all the way till 8 p.m. at night. And their coach lives there. You know, he's there every day. Yeah. I've been there. I've been to and seen the kids playing there. So, you know, it's a different mentality than we have in the Western world. You know, we want to have fun. We want to not have fun, but we want just a very, a balanced life, if you like. Whereas for them, and not all of them, but for them, if they want to be a champion, then there's only one way. And I think your Chen Ximins, people like that, they practice a lot of hours. And, you know, it's that's why I call them little robots. But no, they're great players and, you know, you can't take nothing away from them. They practice hard and they deserve what they get when they put that amount of time in.
So one of the things I want to do with this podcast is to extract some knowledge and information from top players like yourself to really help, you know, up and coming players or just people who are trying to improve. And I'm wondering, if you think back, you knew how to make balls, pot balls from playing snooker, but you really had to learn the game of pool when you moved over here. What is, some like a key piece of advice that you could share with the audience to really help them improve their pool game?
Well, I think one thing that, is important is your fundamentals. You really need to get a good, solid fundamentals technique, so that way, you can always rely on that to, when you're having a bad day, to get you out of trouble. But about the game, the first thing you need to have is passion and really love the sport, love playing. And then after that, it requires a lot of discipline, a lot of practice, and stay confident, and self-belief. It takes a lot of things. There's not really just one piece of advice, other than the first thing you need is the love for the game, the passion for the game, and then the technique. That's how I teach. Give you a good technique, then we can move forward. Then you can pop balls and make balls, and we can then teach you all the different areas of the game. There's so much to learn, and it's a wonderful sport that we have. So, I'd recommend anybody just to really, who enjoys it, just put the time in, put the discipline in, and you'll see your game improve for sure. Yeah.
So Kelly, I know over the years you've had some challenges, some personal health challenges and other things. How has that impacted both in a positive and a negative way your pool game?
Well, believe it or not, was always really fully healthy. It's weird. I needed open heart surgery in 2014, which came out of the blue completely, and it was from a birth defect. So I felt great. I was at the gym. I was doing great. Nothing was wrong. I was winning. Everything was going great, roughly right before then. But I just felt some weird sensations, some palpitations and things. Got it checked out. And to find that was shocking. Anyway, luckily, being a birth defect, once I had the open heart surgery and the repair was done, and for me, luckily, I'd caught it in time. There was no permanent damage. So my recovery was tough. It was tough. Open heart surgery, you're being cut right down here. And of course, when we play, we're having to move there. So it was very difficult. And after that, I was just getting back into the swing of things, and in 2015, I had to have, I didn't have to, I decided to have preventative surgery, as I was told I had the cancer gene, the BRCA, like Angelina Jolie, if you like. I'd lost both my parents by this time to cancer. So my doctor suggested I had the gene test, and I'm always very optimistic. I never thought for 1 minute I would have the cancer gene, but I did. I had two gene mutations. So I chose to take the preventative action, and I decided to have a double mastectomy and a full hysterectomy to avoid the chance of breast cancer and ovarian cancer, which I lost my mum with ovarian. So, and the percentages for the breast cancer were crazy. It was something like 85% by the time I was 45 years old. So it was just no way I was going to live wondering if it was going to get me at any time. So I chose in 2015 to have the double mastectomy. So I did that. So I was just feeling like I was getting my pool game back. And then I had to have another surgery, which again is here. So again, difficult when you're trying to recover for playing. So I would say my game went very much like that. And then, so that was 2014, 15. And then 2016, I had the full hysterectomy, which was easy compared to the other two. So my recovery, it took, I thought, and I always stay confident, I thought, I can see it coming back up now, but it was very much like that. And I had a little glitch in my stroke that, whether it was psychological or what, I didn't tell anybody at the time, but there was something funky going on, and I couldn't, it was like from here, normally people pull back and they can't let go that way. Well, I couldn't pull back. I'm like, and I'd pull back and it'd go through very, very quick. And, I played it off at the time thinking it was just not bothering me, but it took me about 3 years. And I would say only for the last year and a half. So it really took me till about 2018, I would say, until I really felt like I fixed it. And that was a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work. Lionel helping me. I got another couple of coaches just to see their opinion on how to get over it. And so I had more, what I'm trying to say is I thought I'd got over everything great and I was, going to come fighting back, and I did, but there was definitely more of an impact of all that, if you like, that did affect. I had this glitch, and thank God feel like I've got over it now. But I stuck in there, I dug in there, and now the only thing is the hormones. Speaking of hormones earlier, is that obviously having the full hysterectomy, I've got to have hormone treatment, and so sometimes I do find it took me a while to find the balance for that too, and sometimes that can change as well. But other than that, I just keep digging in. I love the game, and I feel like I'm back. And obviously last year winning the World Championships was just, that's why it meant so much, after coming through all that. And I felt my game was at the top in my game before the surgeries. And then it yo-yoed, then the glitch. And I'm like, and it took me a lot of hard work. And then to finally, when I won that World Championships after all that, and I'm over 40, and I beat, all the Chinese players were there. It were like, it meant so much. It really did. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing all that. That was, that's an incredible story. And, it kind of, in some ways, when I was 28, I had tonsil cancer, and, I never smoked, rarely drank, and it was just one of those weird things where I ended up having tonsil cancer, and, stage 3, and, 50% chance of living, and, all that. And so I went through treatments and everything. But, I kind of, I look at adversity sometimes now differently, than I did before, and it's so weird, because it's just a pool game, and even at you're a professional, and to you it's a pool game, but you make a living at it, but compared to life issues, like life and death, that's big stuff. But I still use that sometimes as motivation. I'm down 8-2 in a race to 9. It's like, I've been through worse. I can get it done. I don't know if you ever feel that way. Yeah.
Well, I just, I try to look at, and I do think it teaches you a few things when you've, experienced stuff so severe like that. And, even losing family, close members like your parents, especially, that's taught me a lot. And, I'm not saying that I would wish that upon anybody to teach them things, but I do think you have to use them experiences to try and grow you as a person. And I certainly think I've done that. And I think that I've used my unfortunate, or whether you want to call it unfortunate or whatever, I'm fortunate that I found the cancer gene early before I got any cancer, thank God. So very fortunate in that way. And I used all that stress and worry and that life and death and that worry of that kind of thing, and experience, all that experience. I try and use that for the better good for my game, or just in general in life, to be honest with you. So if we can all learn from life's experiences and try and turn them around into a positive in the best way we can, whatever it's about, I think, that's a great thing. So anybody struggling with the game, if they can know that just dig in and just keep on playing and you'll come through. I experienced it for like 3 years and nobody knew. I didn't tell anybody I was struggling with my game, but I knew there was something wrong with this glitch with my arm, and only my close people knew. And even other players that I'm friends with, I didn't even tell anybody. But I didn't want to. They were my opponents away from on the table. So and I wondered if I would ever win another event based on this. I couldn't pull the cue back. It was a mental block, and it went on for too long, and it was panicking me. It really was. So, but I believed in myself, and I knew, if I practiced hard enough and believed in myself enough and just battled through it, that I could fix it, and I did. So if that's a little bit of inspiration for anybody out there, then go digging deep.
And so, speaking of your opponents, who would you say has been your biggest rival over the years?
Well, in different eras, at times of the game, different eras of the game, if you like, I would say there's been different, I've been playing 30 years. We've got different decades to talk about. There's not been one player. So, I mean, I would say, for example, Alison Fisher and snooker, when I started playing snooker, she was the one, I didn't know her from Adam, and she was the one that I wanted to beat. She was my inspiration. She was my goal, my target, if you like. And she left for America before I was even, I think I was 16 years old. So I never really, she beat me in a few finals. I never really got that chance to peak at my game to even, you know, I never beat her, but that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
At snooker, she took off before I could. I'm only joking. But yeah. So, you know, at that time, that was the 90s. And then Karen Kaur, she took over. She was winning the event. So that she was my new player to beat, if you know. I mean, I'm only 16, 17 years old. And then I did manage to win a few titles off Karen. And then she went to America. And after that, I was doing really well. So then I come to America. So who's the number one again? Alison. Who's number two? Karen. You know, so there we go. I'm back at them again. But then obviously started traveling to Asia. And that's a whole, you know, an whole new breed, really, of players. So then you've got, obviously, Gayam Kim. She was playing in America too. She was a player that you know, we always fought very hard against each other. Sometimes I'd win easy, sometimes she'd win easy, or sometimes it was hill. And then, you know, Chen Simin, Han Yu, you know, we can't, and obviously even Yerubun Amit, and there's many a great player. Taiwan players, So Jae Yu, Wei Zichen, you know, there's just too many to mention. So, but as far as the two iconic players in my life, in my 30 years that popped up in two separate decades have been Alison and Karen, I would say.
Yeah. And we've enjoyed watching a lot of those battles over the years, for sure. So, yeah, whenever I watched you play, you know, I actually watched a couple matches last night on YouTube. I just get this feeling like that you're like I think the first time I ever saw you in a tournament, your hair was spiked and, you know, you had this intimidating presence. You were very deliberate. And, you know, when you went to shoot your shots, it seemed like you hit balls a little harder than I would hit them, you know, and I was just like, wow, you know, she's here to play, you know? But I had this feeling just watching you play in your matches about your mental toughness that, you know, it was kind of a step above a lot of other people. You know, do you have any thoughts about, you know, the way you view the game mentally that's given you an edge that could help other people?
Well, I was very fortunate that my dad was a British champion amateur boxer. Mm. So when I was very little, when I was young, you know, I basically learned boxing. And I'm actually going to boxing class now every week, actually. But yeah, and then I went on and did Kung Fu. I did martial arts and I did Kung Fu, and I trained for 8 years in Kung Fu and got a black belt. And I think that had a lot of influence in my mental strength. So my dad always taught me, you know, you win your fights in the gym and nobody remembers second place, you know. So, you know, he always gave me that kind of, I don't know, just that he'd been involved in sport. He was a champion and he gave me that edge, I suppose, or gave me that determination, or gave me the tools. But then obviously I met Lionel, my coach, and Lionel and my dad and me, you know, we were just like three musketeers, if you like. And Lionel being my mentor and my dad being my, you know, disciplinary. I would say between the three of us, with them two on my side, you know, it was really, I couldn't have asked for anything better. That, along with the discipline I learned at Kung Fu and the mental toughness and mental strength, I think that, you know, it's certainly a meditation and, you know, just the things you learn along the way. But I'd say that the Kung Fu, my dad and Lionel were definitely my assets and what helped me with my mental strength, you know, taught me to believe in myself and that we can do anything if you put your mind to it.
That's really interesting because you're the second person that I've had on the show that has a martial arts background. And I had CJ Wiley on, and he talked about his martial arts background. And, you know, it might be an interesting thing to explore for other players, like a complementary thing when they're not playing pool. You know, I think in the United States, we find there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time in pool rooms, right? And they kind of get into that one track, you know, where they're just pool players and that's all they do. But I think being more well-rounded and picking up something like martial arts or meditation or yoga or something that would help them be able to focus better mentally could be a huge benefit, you know?
Yeah, well, Chen Min, she's a black belt also in Tai Chi or Taekwondo. I forget which martial art it is now, but she's she's a black belt too. And I know a few players that have dabbled in the martial arts that are great players. I think it's good to, especially when you're young, you know, if you've got a child that, you know, you want to get them into, whether it's golf, snooker, pool size snooker, but golf, anything. I think it's good. A good discipline is such as martial arts, because, you know, they teach you the mental side of yourself, really. It's like a meditation, as well as, you know, giving you the confidence that you can do anything you want with your mind. So, I mean, it'd be great. Like I said, I started doing boxing again for fitness, and about a year ago, I was doing Kung Fu, but it was just a bit too much. I'm getting older now. And, you know, I was a bit too much. I was scared I would injure. You've got to be careful for injury, of course.
Yeah.
So I've just stuck to the fitness women's boxing class, but I really enjoy it. I do. I think it's something to think about for other players. Yeah, I think nowadays we need to take it, and I'm not saying before they never, but it's important if you're playing professionally or you want to be a top player or a top professional player, that we have to treat it like a sport, like you're playing a sport. Just because it's not a physical sport doesn't mean that, even though my weight fluctuates up and down, but I'm always doing something. As far as fitness. And I think, you know, it's important that we try and treat it like a sport and try and be an athlete, try and live as healthily as we can. I mean, I've had times during my career where I've not done that, everybody, but, you know, I've certainly, as I'm getting older, I'm getting more and more when I'm looking at being more disciplined with that side of it, doing some yoga, meditation and stuff like that, as well as trying to be a lot healthier. So
I think that's really sound advice. So I noticed the patches on your shirt. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your sponsors.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Fury, as everybody knows, I've been with them forever. I started out, since I moved to America in 2004, I signed a deal with Fury in 2005, and I've been with them ever since.
Wow.
So, Fury have been, I think I had a gap of a couple of years where I brought out my own quickfire brand, and then they ended up helping me with that. So, we've been together for the 15 years I've been playing pool. So a great thank you to them supporting me through my ups and downs, you know, all my surgeries, all the times I weren't winning, as well as, you know, being there for me, whether I were winning or not. So thank you for Fury for that. And Xing Zhui, which is tables, Chinese 8-ball, American 9-ball, snooker tables. They're obviously, as you all know, they're Chinese brand, but they're fantastic quality. And they've been great support now for, I think I'm on my 4th or 5th year with them. So wow. Again, through all the good and the bad. So, you know, I'm very, very lucky and thankful to have these sponsors. And without them during this COVID, it would have been impossible. Yeah. So thank you. And again, without guys like yourself, Joey, for promoting our sport and keeping us out there, the virtual events we've been doing, all the promoters that are trying to push and keep us out there in the social media, keep our sport alive and keep everybody interested in watching it, and the fans for watching it. Without everybody like that, you know, we need that just to keep our game flourishing. So
well, thanks, Kelly. Yeah. Thanks, Kelly. What's next for you in terms of what there is left to accomplish? Like, what are some of your goals that you have left in your pool career?
Well, I would say I'm never satisfied. I mean, I really, whenever I'm playing in any event, my goal is to do the best I can. And of course, you know, my goal is to try and win the event, but I don't think of that leading into the event. I just play the best I can. And I want to, I'd say I want to win another world title, but I've won 9-ball and 10-ball, and I've won snooker and English billiards. So I've not won an 8-ball title, world title. So, and I've joked with people about this, but I think at the moment, I'm the only one to have won 9-ball, 10-ball snooker and English billiards. So I know Alison's won everything all 100 times, but she never won a 10-ball world championship. So I managed to just squeeze that one from her. And yeah, you know, so I think I would love to win an 8-ball world championships, but we've not really had, I've not played in an 8-ball world championships ever. So I heard that this year we were supposed to possibly have one. And obviously with COVID, everything's been turned upside down. So I hope we can have an 8-ball world championships, and that would be, you know, a real goal and a dream for me to win, to kind of complete that. But basically I got a bronze medal in the World Games. I've been to the World Games twice. I got a bronze medal, and I would love nothing more than a gold medal. That would be something I would, you know, be honored to achieve. And I always wanted to be in the Hall of Fame. And when I was inducted this year, I couldn't believe it. I was so honored to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And that was always a dream. So, you know, thank you to everybody for that. But yeah, it was, so I think that's my goals, and just to win as much as I can, or just to play well. That's, you know, and enjoy it and love it. And whenever I think I can win a tournament, I'll keep playing. When I don't think I can win, then it's time to commentate or something. Or coach.
I tell you, congratulations on an amazing career. And it's so good to hear that you still have things that you want to accomplish in the sport, because we don't want to see you go yet. So hang at it. And I want to give you an opportunity just to leave the audience with any final thoughts from Kelly Fisher, anything, words of wisdom, or just anything for the fans.
Well, again, thank you all to all the fans, all you guys, for all your support. We really couldn't do it without you. And, you know, I hope that we can all get over this virus. It can come to an end soon, and we can all get back to life somewhat as normal. And I'll be coming back over to America and playing in real events and seeing you all again. So keep the support. Thanks, everybody. And when you can, get back on the practice table. If you're looking to improve your game, put some hours in, stay confident, and don't give up.